Don't forget our gift cards at RitaYanez.com, and so am I. Under your bed. Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Turn on the light! Hi there, Leo. This is your weekly reading for the week of December 7th through 13th. I hope you're having a wonderful start to the holiday season and that everything's going your way. You deserve it. I know you've been through a lot. You need a wonderful, restful holiday season. There's a lot of noise in your environment. It could be actual physical noise, if there's construction going around near you. If there is other types of noise, it could just be that your home is not harmonious enough. There's an element of what is going on at your home that seems to take precedence here. I think it can be soothed if it just doesn't seem peaceful enough. There are things that you can do. I tell people to start by having their kids put devices away before they sit down at the dinner table. Have them put them on the buffet or on a counter and turn them off, silence them, just like as if they would do if they were in a movie theater. That way you can start to reduce some of the electronic noise, which is very disruptive to your body's energy center. And dinner should be a time when you get together and you have a home-cooked meal and you talk about the day, polite conversation, maybe even discuss some controversy, but without the devices going off alerting everyone. So the reason why this week starts off a little bit on a funky note is not only are we still coming off of the Neptune-Saturn square that started at the end of November, kind of started up again, triggering anxieties and fears, probably about finances, and wondering what it was that was initiated or how this present situation ties into something that was very familiar in about 2007. It could have been that in 2007 things were going really well, and if you feel like your grip is slipping on the stability at this point, it could trigger those very same fears and anxieties. So learn to work with it. Learn to self-soothe when you feel like your energy center, your energy body is out of whack. So try to calm yourself first. Maybe have a cup of warm green tea, sit down, relax, remind yourself that you're living in the present and the past is only good for reflection to make sure that we don't miss any of the instructions or lessons that we learned at the time. So very easy to do, very easy to sit down and say, okay, so what is really going on with me? Why do I feel this way? Some of you may actually be having a home foundation type of issue where you don't feel that your living environment is stable enough. Maybe you're rooming with somebody and that doesn't help you feel stable. Maybe you're considering that you have to move again, and that could be disrupting that same kind of stability there. Uranus squares Pluto is still ongoing. It is going to be more or less disruptive on Monday. So from Sunday to about Monday, this is where it will peak again. It is no longer exact, but remember, these are the heavy hitters. They're objects that are very far away, and as such, their movements are exceedingly slow, and you can imagine that that means that their effects are long, drawn out. They even affect entire generations. So just remember that these disruptions in the patterns are just meant for you to create more harmonious and more pleasant experiences in the present and the future. The cardinal T square here, which will be in effect until about the 11th, which is a new moon in Sagittarius on Friday, your solar 5th house. That right there is also a little bit push-pullish because there are other people involved in this conversation. Pluto in Capricorn is still having its own discussion about your job, your work, the service that you do to get paid. For some people, it could be the unpaid work they do because they're retired and they're living off of that, but they still go and help out at the senior facilities, or they help out at a local thrift store or food bank. And there's some adjustments here. Uranus is the reason why this is a little bit disruptive, in that Uranus in Aries gets people changing their minds quite suddenly, or makes people get up and do things in the 9th house where it's at for you, move across country, and then you're like, wow, I didn't know you'd do that. Or maybe you surprise yourself and you do something that's very unsettling, like decide that you just absolutely have to live in India. So Uranus squaring Pluto also has that energy of, what are you doing? Does it satisfy you? Does it give you the money that you need so that you can live comfortably while you do your good works in the world? Maybe you're considering going back to school to get an advanced education, or go back to some trade school for some certification that would make you feel better. Maybe that's where you have to decide what it is about your dissatisfaction with your 6th house, the house of daily activities, service, work, the work you do every day for the money that you buy the things for your 2nd house with. And also, of course, this is related to your health, your physical body, and what you're doing to take good care of it. So we start off on Monday with the 8 of Pentacles in reverse, and this is a card that indicates that, if anything, you're feeling bored. So it might just be that things have become too routine. Mars in Libra opposes Uranus in Aries, and Libra, being your 3rd solar house of communication, could make it somewhat uncomfortable if you feel like you have to just blurt some truth out. The reason why you need to watch that, of course, is it's peaking on Sunday and Monday, and you may have some pent-up frustrations that have to do with the active phase of the Uranus-Pluto square, where you're like, you know what, I just need to do something about this. I need to get more movement in my life. I lack the motivation. I need to talk to somebody to help encourage me and motivate me, and me sitting here talking to myself isn't doing it. And you could have somebody close to you who needs that kind of motivation. Maybe you've got a spouse, a partner, somebody very significant to you, maybe even a relative, a cousin, a neighbor that needs that kind of motivation, where 2 people pair up and they go walking every day after dinner, and they walk for 30 minutes in one direction, and they come back and they've got a great hour walk in during the time that you would have done the dishes and sat down in front of the TV. So sometimes when you motivate another person to take these actions with you, you communicate how it would benefit both of you. Both of you are able to move your friendship along, your camaraderie along, in a way that also brings you a measure of satisfaction, that you've got somebody to buddy up with who will motivate you on the days that you're not motivated, and you can motivate them, and vice versa. On Tuesday, we have the Chariot, and the Chariot card upright is really great because it shows me that you're bringing together different parts of your lives that are somewhat more harmonious when you integrate them, similar to the example of having a walking buddy, or somebody that trains dogs with you, and somebody who will motivate you and keep you going and help you be more extroverted. And I know that that sounds funny because I'm saying this to a Leo, but sometimes even Leo becomes a little withdrawn and introverted. And it doesn't mean that you have to go out there and just throw yourself out under the lights whenever you're feeling a little low, but it does mean that to keep you in a happy, harmonious, positive energy flow, that doing things with another person, even if it's your spouse, a neighbor, a friend, somebody else from the bingo hall, that you both can benefit from being positive, because there's no doubt in my mind that cabin fever doesn't just affect me. I'm sure there are other people who get cabin fever, especially, when you're snowed in and nothing's changing and you're dreaming about the beach in California, and it's like, okay, can the summer be done? And then we have to wait for it. Mercury in Sagittarius is also going to square the North Node in Virgo, which is your solar 2nd house. Mercury in Sagittarius, of course, is your fifth house of romance and creativity. And if you have children, they would be here. Your siblings, your early home environment participants like your cousins and neighbors could factor in. So the North Node in the second house would indicate, of course, that the South Node is opposite it in the eighth house, which is your solar house of Pisces. Then for you, this rules taxes, debts, combined assets, and even combined debt, jointly held assets and debt. This is also a house of transformation and even about the sexual relationship component in a marriage. And this would really be about the seventh house type of partnerships, not just the dating associations, but we do have that element there. So the nodes, what they like to do is show us where we need to work on or emphasize an area and where we should de-emphasize or de-escalate the activities in another, which would be the eighth house in this case. So you need to keep your eye on your finances as they relate to your leisure activities, your hobbies, where you invest money where you don't really expect a return, the gifts you give to your children, your family, your friends, anything here with a creative component, and perhaps for some of you with a dating partner, that you need to watch your finances because it seems to be that there's a leak there. And it could be that you just need to get a grip on how you spend your money this holiday season so that you've got enough to go around and that you don't suffer the anxiety of the credit card bills that come in at the end of January. The Sun in Sagittarius is also going to trine Uranus in Aries. So even if you do have a conversation about this, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn into a full-blown smack each other upside the head and get a divorce kind of arrangement. It's just more that you'll have that benefit of being able to be positive or put a positive spin on whatever the dialogue must needs be. So if it needs to be about, hey, look, we need to both check each other's spending this season, that we just don't go crazy every Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Electronic Tuesday or whatever the hell it is that gets promoted out there to get people to just buy stuff. I would like to offer to remind you that you can't take it with you. You can go manifest it and create it on the other side if you like, but you really aren't going to take all this stuff with you. So if you don't have the newest phone, if you don't have the newest tablet, if you don't have the best computer, if you don't have the newest shiny thing, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't define who you are anyway. And if you've ever met people that are defined by their possessions where they can barely afford their medical care, but they're driving a Benz. And it's like, wow, kind of not the way I want to eat my dinner. I don't like motor oil in my soup. So just consider that these things don't define you. And as soon as you can bring these two either opposing parties that are opposed to having to batten down the hatches a little bit before the storm of the credit card, comes at the end of January. It looks like it'll be easy to do. It's really not as difficult to do. Or if somebody has that conversation with you, like, hey, look, I want to buy you every shiny thing, but then we don't have money for groceries. And then what are we going to cook? I guess you could go fishing, right, if you're near a body of water. On Wednesday, we've got the Queen of Pentacles upright, and this could be an indication that there is a female involved in some deliberations or some consideration, and she is maybe an earth sign, so she could be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. She might also just have these rising sign attributes, or she might really be the person who holds the money, whether she is a financier, a sugar mama. I don't really mean that. I'm just joking with you because it came to mind. Too much Jerry Springer. And so this could be a person who's an accountant, a CPA. This could be a person who's a banker, a lender, a broker, but somehow she is associated with the money question. Now, she could be an effeminate male just as well. We know we've got to include everybody because, like I said, 31 flavors of soup, apparently, and then sometimes we mix them together. And so this is the kind of environment that bodes well for financial discussions and for maybe advice. Maybe you're going to H&R Block and are saying, hey, look, is there anything I could do here in December to ameliorate or otherwise reduce some debt, to prevent from having a higher tax bracket, just surprisingly come up and hit me in the butt. And so this is where you would really do well to get that kind of advice so that before year end, quite obviously here, at least in the United States, we're preparing to wrap up because tax season starts in January. And then we get ready to get these things done by tax time, which is, usually around April 15th. So we also have the Sun in Sagittarius squaring Chiron in Pisces. So Sagittarius, again, being your solar fifth house of creativity, and Pisces being your eighth house of taxes. I'm going to say it again. Do not do your own taxes unless you've got short form and you don't owe anything. You might want to let a tax attorney help you with this. The reason being that the Sun in Sagittarius gives us all the ideas that we can be as creative as we want. And that seems to be fine until we do the one thing, create the one faux pas that is going to draw the attention of the IRS or the state franchise tax board types to look at things. I would put it on somebody else and tell myself, for what it would cost me to have this expert involved is going to benefit me like beauty rest. So think of it that way. Mercury will also shift into Capricorn, your solar sixth house. So you may be either inclined all on your own to take your workaday sector more seriously and or to structure the way that you work so that you've got everything set up in a way that makes sense. Even if you've got hobbies that only cost you money, but they bring you lots of joy, then maybe there's a way to structure that with the help of the Queen of Pentacles into a business that is operated out of the home, which is where I would strongly suggest you have a tax preparer, a professional one who does this for a living, handle things so that you can go ahead and enjoy yourself while at the same time reaping benefits that if something goes wrong, the tax professional, if you get one who is licensed to appear before the IRS or mediate any issues like this, you can have this person do it because they get to guarantee their work. If you do it yourself, there are no guarantees, and then you'd have to pay somebody else to help you take care of that anyway. So on Thursday we have the Fool, which is great because this is where we get that energy of ingenue. You feel like you could just start all over and be whatever you want to be. You're feeling that breath of fresh air coming in from the new moon that is due here on Friday, the 11th. And so this day we've got Mars and Libra opposing Uranus and Aries. And again, Libra being your solar third house of communication. And then, of course, Aries being your ninth house of legal matters, spiritual matters, higher education, higher learning, travels to distant places. So you may be thinking that it would be a good time to take a little bit of a vacation or to schedule one in, as long as it doesn't pinch your bottom line and you can't afford to pay for your regular expenses. And maybe it would be a good time to start planning this. Keep in mind that Mercury goes into pre-shadow phase approximately December 19th. And as such, we could be hit with those snafus. So it would be good if you're going to have to make reservations that you pay for some insurance, whether it is for your airline flights or for your resort town type of reservations, where if you pay a little extra, you can move it around and change things so that you don't get stuck with tickets you can't use or sell. If they were like Super Bowl tickets in the days of old, then they might be easier to sell. But a lot of people are intimidated to fly right now, which is fine. And so it's a little bit harder to sell tickets that people wouldn't have bought on their own unless you do it at a deeply discounted price, which then would be compensated if you would have paid for the insurance to switch things around anyway. Venus and Scorpio on that day also trines Neptune and Pisces. Scorpio being your fourth house of home and family, Pisces being your eighth house of the effects of or the result of or the combination of two people getting together, whether romantically for their marriage or otherwise very committed partnership or business relationship produces. So you've got some good discussions that you can have right here with the significant people in your life that could actually make it maybe a fun, enjoyable thing that a few of you could get together to do. Maybe you've always wanted to take a vacation with your spouse and your family at the same time. And, when your spouse can't miss work and that means that you can't take a trip because you are both, one of you isn't going to leave the other, maybe this would be the time to start to plan something like this where you could really enjoy the benefit of being with the people that you love the most and being able to participate together in an excursion. That could happen. On Friday, we've got the Wheel of Fortune upright, which is coinciding with that new moon in Sagittarius, your solar fifth house of children, romance, creativity, and all of the good things that come with the homes that we set up and the people we put in them. And the Wheel of Fortune here is talking about timing being a friend, this time that you're feeling like you're on top of a cycle, that things are starting to go your way. I know that you've had a lot of challenges in recent years because of these very significant transits, like when Saturn was transiting Scorpio. Of course, you and Aquarius were also experiencing this, and in solar astrology, it would have really put some pressure on relationships that if the relationship wasn't strong, it wasn't going to last. And so keep in mind now that if you're feeling like things are going your way, you're probably right. So also Mars and Libra will quincunx, which is an inconjunct aspect to Chiron and Pisces here at this point. So again, just make sure that the lines of communication are clear and that you handle any bits of misinformation, sometimes explanations that are lost in translation. I sound like Willy Wonka, don't I? Anyway, so here you've got the remnants of different conversations that just may need to be clarified before you move on. And that's only because this new moon it's wonderful and it's lovely and it's amazing, but at the same time, it is a little off kilter because Mars and Libra is not the most comfortable thing for everybody ever. Ask a Libra how they like having Mars there. They feel like they have to stand up for themselves or stand up to somebody else or stand up for a cause, and that's not their favorite posture. They would be more like Mr. Carey and make an excellent diplomat. They really don't want to have to go to blows. You probably don't want to watch a Virgo go to blows, though, or excuse me, a Libra, because if they do, they'll just take you down with kid gloves, but they will end it. It's just that that's not really the state that's comfortable for them. So there's always a bit of a detriment to have Mars and Libra. It's just not its favorite place to be. Likewise, Libra's ruler Venus is in Scorpio at this time in the house of home and family. And while that makes things easier at home, Libra feels like they're missing a little bit of this energy that helps them convince people to be normal. And because that's in your third house of communication, you could be talking to people where you could say to yourself, am I speaking in Arabic? Am I coming across like I speak Chinese? How is it that I'm not being understood? And it could just be that you need to just go over a few of the details or points in these considerations. And it could be that you don't understand what somebody else is trying to explain to you. Maybe they're saying, don't charge anything on the cards. And then you're like, oh, well, so I can go charge everything on the card. That's exactly where we need to just notice what the other person is saying. Maybe it would be easier for somebody to like spell it out, like take a piece of copy paper and put each letter on there and put banners on the wall. But not everybody thinks they need to do that. It's just that they forget that we can't always infer from what they imply, and we're like, well, I thought you said I could charge everything on the cards. And so here on Saturday we've got the Magician in reverse. Not a bad thing. It just may be that you need a little rest, and you probably do. Now if you rest all week long, then you know that that's kind of taking advantage of it. But if you do need some downtime, Saturday would be a good day to do it. We have the energy here that maybe you're feeling not so powerful, or maybe you're feeling like you're a little drained. Well, if your body tells you that you're drained, then maybe you need to cuddle up with your sweetheart or your dog on the couch and watch a fun show or see something interesting. Look at how much fun we can have with YouTube. I've watched so many different History Channel shows and sci-fi shows that, I might as well be able to chalk it up and say, thank you, YouTube. I love them. And it also gives us the benefit of entertainment, because I personally don't even know anybody who has cable TV anymore, or anybody that even watches TV. Everybody is on YouTube and, watching YouTube. Hi, since you're watching this. Anyway, on Sunday, we've got the Three of Swords in reverse, and I don't want you panicking about it. It's a good thing. Here, the Three of Swords lets me know that even though you've suffered some difficulties in the past, maybe some heartache and maybe some shake and bake in relationships, or it could be that you've gone through some real stressors in terms of yourself, your partner together, and another entity like a creditor, or another entity like a family member who has just not been the nicest. And this could relate also to the fifth house, where we've got our siblings, our children, our cousins, our neighbors, our half siblings, our adopted family members, foster children. There's so much here that we could talk about, but in the end, it really just matters to know that you are healing and that you are getting better. And if you feel like you need to take some you time, wrap yourself up in a little blanket, have a cup of hot cocoa, and shove a candy cane in it. It's amazing. Have a wonderful week and take good care of yourself. Leo, I'll be talking to you soon.